call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Baker.
Here.
Swigard.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Russo.
Before we get to the first item on the agenda, I have to read the following statement. Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body created by the City of Iowa City according to state statutes. Board's purpose is to decide on applications for variances from the zoning ordinance, appeals of decisions of city officials, and applications for special exceptions requested under the zoning ordinance. Board of Adjustment is an independent volunteer board made up of Iowa City residents and is not part of the city administration. We are assisted in our work by the city attorney's office and by planning staff. Prior to this meeting, board members received the materials submitted by the applicants, the staff reports, reviewing the application, and any correspondence submitted by members of the public. Board members have not discussed the application or its merits with each other, staff, the applicant, or any other member of the public in advance of this meeting. All consideration and discussion by the board takes place in open meeting here tonight, where we also have an opportunity to hear from the public. Board bases its decisions on facts and evidence allowed by city code presented in open meeting. Concise and truthful testimony helps us a great deal in our decision-making, and we ask that if you wish to speak, that you come to the podium, print your name and address on the sign-in sheet, and speak clearly into the microphone so your testimony can be heard by all present and by our minute taker, as all testimony becomes part of the public record. We ask that the proceedings be orderly and that when you are testifying, you address your remarks to the board. And if this hearing becomes lengthy, we may ask the testimony be focused on new facts or on information not already presented. The order of proceedings for the appeal application will be introduction by the secretary of the board setting forth the administrative decision on appeal. Oh, wait a minute, this is not up tonight, so we don't have to read this, do we?
Right, it's a special exception.
Okay. So let's go to the first item on the agenda is special exception EXC 25-0001, application requesting a special exception to allow a drive-through facility associated with an eating establishment in a community commercial CC2 zone at 21 Sturgis Corner Drive, EXC 25-0001. Up first will be a staff report. No, I have to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. It's opened. Now, staff report.
All right, good evening. Madison Conley, Associate Planner. I'm here to present over agenda item 3A, special exception EXC 25-0001, an application requesting a special exception to allow a drive-through facility associated with an eating establishment in a community commercial CC2 zone at 21 Sturgis Corner Drive. Here on the screen, you can see is a location map of the subject property, which is bordered by that dashed white line. You can see that the property is located north of Highway 6 East and it's west of the Iowa River. Currently, the property has access from the north and east curb cuts on Sturgis Corner Drive. Then we have the zoning map where you can see that the subject property is zone CC2 along with the surrounding properties. To the south, there is Highway 6 East and a neighborhood public zone P1 zone just below. There are no residential zones in the vicinity of the subject property. To get into the background, we can start with 21 Sturgis Corner Drive being zoned that CC2 zone. And currently there is a Los Amigos restaurant that occupies the current eating establishment that exists on site. The owner intends to maintain the same zone and use of the subject property, which is the CC2 zone with an eating establishment use. The developer plans to demolish the existing structure and construct a new eating establishment with a drive-through facility. The new eating establishment is estimated to have around 2,300 square feet of usable space and an occupancy load of 49 people. The proposed drive-through would be a Chipotle lane, and it's a new drive-through format utilized by Chipotle. The proposed drive-through lane will not include an order board, since the main purpose is to serve as a pickup lane for orders that are placed online via the app or through the website. Additionally, with this proposal, the city has requested a traffic impact study. Then we have a picture of the site plan. So here the site plan shows that there is a proposed drive-through lane that starts on the north facade and wraps around the west facade of the building. In this drive-through lane, there are a proposed 6 stacking spaces. Then there's 2 access points off Sturgis Corner Drive. There used to be 3, but the developer is proposing 2. You can see that all over the site, there's directional arrows. There's also do not enter signs at each one-way exit. and there is a sidewalk along Sturgis Corner Drive. Here are some pictures of the property. You can see that there's the existing building on the subject property that is proposed to be demolished. And this is a view of the existing building facade and entrance looking north from Highway 6 East. Here's another set of pictures. This is looking south from Sturgis Corner Drive, and you can see the existing paving on site. The role of the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment is charged with approving with conditions, or denying the application based on the facts presented. To approve the special exception, the board must find that it meets all applicable approval criteria. Specific standards pertaining to the waiver requested, and general standards for all special exceptions. Specific standards. 14.4C 2K3, drive-through facilities. A, access and circulation. The transportation system should be capable of safely supporting the proposed drive-through use in addition to the existing uses in the area. 1, whenever possible and practical, drive-through lanes shall be accessed from secondary streets, alleys, or shared cross-access drives. Staff found that the traffic impact study found that Sturgis Corner Drive and South Riverside Drive intersection is already functioning poorly, and the proposed development will make traffic slightly worse at the intersection. Then westbound to southbound turning movement from Sturgis Corner Drive onto South Riverside Drive is currently functioning as a level of service F during PM peak hours, and the proposed development has a moderate impact to the westbound to southbound delay. The traffic study also found that the city does not have a proposed project to deal with the failing turning movement. Therefore, staff is not recommending any off-site improvements. In the future, the city could move forward with a standalone intersection improvement project or couple the intersection project with the larger future Highway 1-6 Riverside project that is currently being planned to address the failing level of service. Additionally, Sturgis Corner Drive is a secondary street. 2, to provide for safe pedestrian movement, the number and width of curb cuts serving the use may be limited. The site currently has 3 curb cuts, but as I noted earlier, the site plan shows that one of those curb cuts will be removed as part of the redevelopment of the site. Therefore, access to the site would be from the remaining 2 curb cuts off of Sturgis Corner Drive. Additionally, sidewalks would be installed along both sides of Sturgis Corner Drive. And in addition to ensuring all standards are met during routine site plan review, staff is recommending general compliance with the attached site plan be a condition of the approval to help ensure safe pedestrian travel. 3, an adequate number of stacking spaces must be provided to ensure traffic safety is not compromised. A minimum of 6 stacking spaces is recommended for drive-through facilities associated with eating establishments. As we saw earlier, the site plan did show there are 6 stacking spaces provided, and then the single drive-through lane leads to the pickup window and includes a bypass lane. The 6 stacking spaces do meet the minimum recommended number of stacking spaces required for eating establishments. Additionally, the parking aisle around and to the drive-through provides additional space to help accommodate spillover traffic and minimize traffic safety impacts. 4, sufficient on-site signage and pavement marking shall be provided to indicate direction of vehicular travel, pedestrian crossings, stop signs, no entrance areas, and other controls to ensure safe vehicular and pedestrian movement. Staff found that the site plan included those directional arrows that you saw all throughout the site. They're found in the drive-through area and parking areas. There's a digital pickup ahead pavement marking to the drive-through entrance. And there are those do not enter signs at each one-way exit. And on the site plan, you will find that there's a pedestrian route that crosses the parking drives to the west. The signage, in addition to the pavement markings, help prevent improper lane travel and promotes the safety of vehicular circulation on the site. Also, pedestrian safety is improved by having the pedestrian crossing designation. Specific standards. 14.4C2K3, drive-through facilities. B, location. 1, drive-through lanes and service windows must be located on a non-street facing facade, unless the applicant can demonstrate that a street-facing location is preferable for the overall safety and efficiency of the site. does not conflict with adjacent uses or pedestrian access, and does not compromise the character of the streetscape or neighborhood in which it is located. Staff found that although a portion of the drive-through lane is located between Highway 6 and the building, this proposed design is preferable for the overall safety and efficiency of the site. The drive-through will not impact the design quality of the streetscape because it is located on the interior portion of the lot. It's also adequately set back, and it's screened to the S2 standard from Sturgis Corner Drive, Highway 6 East, and the adjacent property to the west by the building and the landscaping. All of these factors help integrate the proposed drive-through lane into the landscape and streetscape design of the neighborhood. And as I've mentioned, sidewalks are to be installed on both sides of Sturgis Corner Drive. Staff recommends the condition that the developer shall pay the city a fee for the cost of installing a sidewalk along Highway 6 East portion of the site. The sidewalk will be installed by the city at a future date, and this condition aims to improve the pedestrian environment. 2, drive-through lanes must be set back at least 10 feet from adjacent lot lines and public rights-of-way and screened from view according to the design standards below. Staff found that the drive-through lane is set back 46 feet from the adjacent lot line to the west, and it's screened to the S2 standard. Staff will also ensure that all standards are met during site plan review. Specific standards 14.4C2K3, drive-through facilities C, design standards. The number of drive-through lanes, stacking spaces, and paved area necessary for drive-through facility will not be detrimental to adjacent residential properties or detract from or interrupt pedestrian circulation on the commercial character of the area in which the use is located. 1, to promote compatibility with the surrounding development, the number of drive-through lanes should be limited to not diminish the design quality of the streetscape or the safety of the pedestrian environment. The site plan proposes one drive-through lane at 10 feet wide, and there's a pickup and one bypass lane, which is 12 feet wide. We know that the drive-through will not impact the design quality of the streetscape because it is, like I said, on that interior portion of the lot. It's set back 46 feet and it's screened to the S2 standard from the Sturgis Corner Drive, Highway 6 East, and the adjacent property to the west with the building and the landscape. The sidewalks are to be installed on Sturgis Corner Drive on both sides. And again, to help improve the pedestrian environment, staff recommends the condition that the developer pay the city a fee for installing the sidewalk at a future date. Drive-through lanes, bays, and stacking spaces shall be screened from views from the street and adjacent properties to the S2 standard. If adjacent to residential use or property zoned residential, it must be screened from view of these properties to at least the S3 standard. Staff found that there is only one drive-through lane proposed, and it will be screened appropriately to the S2 standard from adjacent properties and streets rights of way. All surrounding properties are zoned CC2, and the neighboring property to the west is an auto repair shop, and the properties to the north and east are a mix of office uses. Then generally to the south, of the subject property, there is Highway 6 East, and there are no residential properties in the surrounding area. 3, multiple windows servicing a single lane, stacking lane, e.g. order board, payment window, pickup window, should be considered to reduce the amount of idling on the site. There will be no order board associated with the proposed drive-through lane since orders will be placed on the mobile app and the website. Orders are going to be placed in advance for pickup. 4, stacking spaces, driveways, and drive-through windows shall be located to minimize potential for vehicular and pedestrian conflicts and shall be integrated into the surrounding landscape and streetscape design of the neighborhood in which it is located. The drive-through lane is separated from the parking areas by pavement markings to help avoid vehicular conflicts. And since the drive-through is on the interior portion of the lot and it's screened from Sturgis Corner Drive and Highway 6 East by the landscaping, that ultimately helps integrate this proposed drive-through into the landscape and streetscape design of the neighborhood. 5, lighting for the drive-through facility must comply with the outdoor lighting standards set forth in Chapter 5, Article G of this title, and must be designed to prevent light trespasses and glare onto neighboring residential properties. Staff will ensure lighting meets city standards to prevent light trespasses during site plan review. 7, loudspeakers I'm sorry, 6, repealed by ordinance number 164685 on 11/15/2016. Now on to 7. Loudspeakers or intercom systems, if allowed, should be located and directed to minimize disturbance to adjacent uses. Special consideration should be given to locations adjacent to residential uses to ensure such systems do not diminish the residential character of the neighborhood. We know that no loudspeakers or intercom systems will be proposed with this drive-through lane, since orders will be placed in advance. General standards, 14.4B3, special exception review requirements. 1, the specific proposed exception will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or general welfare. As required by the city, the traffic impact study was submitted, and the traffic impact study found that Sturgis Corner Drive and South Riverside Drive intersection is already functioning poorly, and the proposed development will make the traffic slightly worse at the intersection. Westbound to southbound turning movement from Sturgis Corner Drive onto South Riverside Drive is currently functioning as a level of service F during PM peak hours, and the proposed development does have a moderate impact to the westbound to southbound delay. Currently, the city does not have a proposed project to deal with the failing turning movement. Therefore, staff is not recommending any off-site improvements. To continue on, in the future, the city could move forward with a standalone intersection improvement project or couple the intersection project with a larger future Highway 16 Riverside project that is currently being planned to address the failing level of service. Also, pedestrian circulation on the site will be improved with the inclusion of pedestrian paths that provide routes within the site, as well as the new sidewalks that will be placed along Sturgis Corner Drive. The proposed signs and pavement markings will help efficiently direct traffic on the site, and on-site vehicular circulation and access are adequate to accommodate anticipated users and drive-through traffic. 2, the specific proposed exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity and will not substantially diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood. As we know, the surrounding properties are all zoned CC2. The proposed eating establishment is a permitted use in the CC2 zone, and it's not going to change with this proposed development. The only abutting property is the property to the west, which is an existing vehicle repair use. The proposed development will be required to incorporate screening along the western property subject to city standards. To the south is Highway 6 East, which separates the subject property to the city-owned land directly to the south. And this use does not interfere with the use of the surrounding properties, which do include the vehicle repair and general office uses. 3, establishment of the specific proposed exception will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district in which such property is located. The surrounding properties are developed with general office uses to the north and east, vehicle repair use to the west, and Highway 6 and institutional use to the south. The proposed drive-through lane is on that interior area of the lot and will be appropriately screened from adjacent properties. This site is suitable for the proposed infill development since city services are provided currently to the site. This is an existing condition that may affect future redevelopment. Oh, I apologize. I meant to say westbound to southbound turning movement from Sturgis Corner Drive onto South Riverside Drive is currently functioning as a level of service F during PM peak hours, and the proposed development has a moderate impact to the westbound to southbound delay. This is an existing condition that may affect future redevelopment and improvement. However, this condition is not created due to the proposed drive-through facility. 4, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities have been or are being provided. The subject property is an infill parcel surrounded by existing development. Sanitary sewer and water mains can service the subject property and have sufficient capacity to accommodate the proposed use. The traffic impact study found that the Sturgis Corner Drive and South Riverside Drive intersection are already functioning poorly, and the proposed development will make traffic slightly worse at this intersection. Again, westbound to southbound turning movement from Sturgis Corner Drive onto South Riverside Drive is currently functioning as a level of service F during those PM peak hours, and the proposed development has a moderate impact to the westbound to southbound delay. City does not have a proposed project to deal with the failing turning movement. Therefore, staff is not recommending any off-site improvements. And in the future, the city could move forward with a standalone intersection improvement project or couple the intersection project with the larger future Highway 1-6 Riverside project that is currently being planned to address the failing level of service. 5, adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress designed to minimize traffic congestion on public streets. Again, we have the same notes here from the traffic study, finding that the intersection Sturgis Corner Drive and South Riverside Drive is functioning poorly, and the proposed development will continue to make that traffic slightly worse. The failing turning movement in the westbound to southbound area at the PM peak hours, and the proposed development does have that moderate impact to the westbound to southbound delay. And currently, the city does not have a proposed project to deal with the failing turning movement, and staff is not recommending any off-site improvements. Again, in the future, the city could move forward with that standalone intersection improvement project or couple the intersection project with the larger future Highway 1-6 Riverside project that's currently being planned to address the failing level of service. And as we know, the site plan did show that there's the adequate stacking spaces at the number of 6 stacking spaces for the eating establishment on site. 6, except for the specific regulations and standards applicable to the exception being considered, the specific proposed exception in all other respects conforms to the applicable regulations or standards of the zone in which it is to be located. Staff will ensure the proposed development conforms with all applicable zoning standards and regulations during subsequent site plan and building permit review. 7, the proposed exception will be consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city as amended. Staff found that the comprehensive plan's future land use map shows this area as mixed use, and the future land use map of the Southwest District Plan shows this area as community commercial. The comprehensive plan generally supports compatible infill development, and the proposed exception would allow the redeveloped eating establishment to include a drive-through facility, both which are classified as commercial uses and are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of EXC 25-0001 to allow for a drive-through facility for the property located at 21 Sturgis Corner Drive, subject to the following conditions. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the developer shall pay the city a fee for the cost of installing a sidewalk along Highway 6 East to be installed by the city at a future date. Fee to be determined by the city engineer. 2, general compliance with the site plan dated 02-05-25. Oops. If you have questions regarding the traffic impact study, there is a transportation planning staff here tonight at the meeting to answer any questions you may have. And with that, that concludes the presentation. And now I will turn it back over to the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the staff?
I want to know what level of service F during PM peak hours means.
Hello, my name is Emily Bothell. I am the Senior Associate Transportation Planner. Good evening. Level of service really refers to the general flow of traffic. So when we look at level of service, we have level of service A, where we have free-flowing traffic. Vehicles are moving at a normal speed, and then it's all the way to an F. And an F level of service means that you may have more stop and go conditions, and speeds may be variable. So it doesn't mean that the intersection is not operating well and it's gridlocked. It just means that the flow is not as steady as level of service A.
And F is the bottom one.
Right, it goes from A to F, and then once you get past a certain number, so that's delay per vehicle, then it's just above that.
But that is the responsibility of, that particular problem is the responsibility of the city, not of the person who is initiating this exception.
Right now, the delay that is experienced at the intersection is not caused by this redevelopment, and the additional delay is marginal. I think the level of service is maybe 30 more seconds. And it's primarily for that westbound left turning movement. And I like to break it down where when we look at like the PM peak hour, only 1 hour in the PM was looked at. We have an additional of 76 vehicles that are trying to exit the site and or enter and exit the site. And we have only 13 that are making that westbound left turning movement. So we have 13 additional vehicles in that PM peak hour that will have increased delay. Is that helpful?
I have one other question.
Yeah.
The capacity of the restaurant is 49. How many parking spaces do they need to have outside in order to service 49 people inside?
The parking space ratio is not based on occupancy, I believe. It's based on the square footage of the interior space. And we will ensure that that minimum parking standard is met as part of site plan review.
I have a question for staff. This subject property is in the floodplain, and that evaluation happens during the permit process, correct?
That's correct.
And they're not asking at this time for any exceptions to the zoning requirements in a floodplain, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
I have a couple of questions for staff as well. So the new sidewalk that goes along Highway 6, roughly east to west, will the fee for that sidewalk include that sort of east-northeast leg that would be required to connect to the sidewalk that they are installing on Sturgis Corner Drive?
Yeah, that's a good question. That would make sense to include that piece. We can confirm that with Public Works.
Sorry.
And similarly, if the board wants to make that more clear in its condition, it certainly can.
The South Drive that's going to be abandoned isn't shown on this exhibit as to be abandoned. Does staff think that it would be a good idea to call that out just for clarity for people making bids for the work and for staff when it's completed?
Yeah, we can make that comment and ask them to revise that for the purposes of attaching, I guess, the condition that it comply with the site plan, that be added, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think, because I know sometimes these are used as bidding instruments, these site plans, and they're sent out to subcontractors, and it's helpful if that's shown. It will help the subcontractor. And the last one I have is the bike parking by the dumpster. With the improvements that are going to occur on Highway 6 East, it seems likely that there might be more bicycle traffic, and I'm just wondering what staff thinks about the location of the bike parking and the fact that it requires a person to cross the stacking spaces for the pickup. Would there be a more visible and maybe safer location for bike parking?
I noticed that too. I thought that was
Yeah.
maybe not the best location for the bike parking.
I believe. Okay. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong.
I guess I would say our zoning code doesn't require, it requires that bike parking be placed on site somewhere, and the minimum is required. If
Mhm.
the board wants to request that be relocated to another part of the site, you could add that as a condition.
I'd like to know what other people think, but I think it would be a better separation of vehicular traffic and bike traffic, and that would be one less pedestrian crossing to put into the site plan.
Can I ask if there's a recommended, do you see a better uh,
Well,
area of the site where you think it would be ideal?
I think somewhere on the east side of the site where, again, it's more visible from the, what will be an improved bike way along Highway 6. It could be tucked into a corner. If they have any parking spaces in excess, it looks like there's a little patio seating area maybe for outside dining, which I think should be left, should not be turned into bike parking because it looks like a great place to sit outside. But I would defer to staff and the designer to come up with a location. And that's all I have.
Well, I have some questions. but
Go
I can
ahead, no, no.
Oh, no, might take me a bit. I have some questions about the traffic study. The traffic study did talk about the westbound queue from the signal at Highway 6 and Highway 1, backing up towards the east, where that entrance to Sturgis is from Highway 1. There was no study, I noticed, there was nothing in the study about the backup of traffic northbound on Riverside between Benton and Sturgis.
So to clarify, the queuing between Benton Street south to Sturgis, but the northbound movement.
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, you know where Staples is, in front of Staples and McDonald's,
Right.
and then down to the Sturgis Corner Drive entrance. There was nothing in the traffic report about the backup traffic in that location, and perhaps the difficulty of getting out to the right to head north.
Sure. Yeah, I don't recall if that was in there or not, but if you did not see it, right now, anecdotally, there is some queuing there. But again, vehicles that are coming out of Sturgis Corner Drive, they are stacking up on Sturgis Corner Drive before they make, say, a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn. And so when we look at intersection, overall intersection level of service, we also consider the percentage of vehicles that are kind of entering that intersection. And when we look at Riverside Drive, that has a majority of the vehicles, right? And so if we have, 13 additional vehicles that are queuing on Sturgis Corner Drive and have to wait to get out and find a gap, that's acceptable because it is a smaller percentage of overall intersection traffic. So when we look at the intersection, Sturgis Corner Drive, at that intersection, it's like 1 to 2% of total traffic at that intersection. So
I think my concern more is the backup from Benton Street in front of McDonald's, which already
Mhm.
happens, and Staples, impacting that property with perhaps the space that's available for people coming out of Sturgis, then plugging up Staples exit more, but there was nothing in the study about the number of vehicles, or because it refers to the driving queue down at the other corner, the average, it's 75% of the distance and things like that, but this wasn't measured for the Benton Street.
Sure. And I will say that, you know, it's likely that there may be queues, but there will also be gaps available, right? So there will be opportunities for motor vehicles to exit out of there. The other thing is there is another access point to the south. So anyone that is accessing this property would have the opportunity to travel south down to the highway and then, you know, continue on to Riverside Drive, north or south. So there are opportunities available, and we find that people do tend to self-correct if they find that, you know, it is very difficult to turn right or left out of an intersection.
I self-correct a lot there. So also regarding the study, they mentioned repeatedly it was done during a time when the university was not in session,
Right.
or it was during finals week. There's no mention of the traffic either in the, I'm not going to get all the MO, whatever, the metropolitan, the local traffic group.
Metropolitan Planning Organization, yes.
Or this traffic study. That also one of the major and popular restaurants along Riverside Drive at that diagonal intersection was closed during the both traffic studies. Is there any way to guess how much traffic that would have perhaps, how that would have impacted the study?
I can't guess that for you right now, no. And when the MPO completed their counts, I believe those were done in October of last year. So I'm not sure if that business was closed at that time.
It was.
But the counts that the MPO had taken at that time were even lower than what the consultant had derived. And so, you know, there was some evening out there. But no, I can't guess that for you.
Well, as mentioned, I think the impact of having the university on during finals week and having this restaurant, which is on Cheryl's, closed, also impacts the traffic study. I really, you know, we don't have numbers, but I just feel it. Let's see, I think that's all about the traffic study I have. Go ahead. Okay, well, this is more about the site kind of questions. I just want to clarify the 76 trips that we're referring to. Approximately 40 in and 36 out during the PM peak. That's just for the 1 hour, 4:15 to 5:15.
Yes, we only, yeah, we typically only 1 hour during the AM and PM are looked at in situations like this because that's typically the hour that is the busiest. And so that's the hour that we're going to see the most vehicles traveling adjacent to. a
How did someone come to 76?
The 76 vehicles were derived from the trip generation manual. So it's based on square footage of the business, and then that's applied out. So there are estimated numbers. So based on 2,300 square feet during the AM peak hour, it's estimated that, you know, on average nationally, there's 9 vehicles that may be accessing the site or generated by this site. And then they do a breakdown as to the number of vehicles that are going in and then the number of vehicles that are coming out. And so it's derived based on, you know, the ITE trip generation manual, which is a national standard.
Well, is there any way to determine how many of those 76 are using the drive-through versus how many are going into the restaurant?
So the ITE trip generation manual, they don't have a specific code for a Chipotlane. And so the trip generation code that was used was for a fast food restaurant that actually would have an intercom and you could drive up and you could order there. And so as a part of that, they don't have the number of vehicles that are going to be in the lane at any given time. But it's likely that the trips generated with that fast food restaurant drive-through code may even be higher than what the Chipotlane may experience.
Okay, so how, the only way that I have seen on site is pavement markings that indicate that it's a mobile drive-through. There are no signs that are at eye level that say, okay, so if I'm unfamiliar with the restaurant, I have to know to look at the pavement to know this is not a typical order kind of situation like I would do at McDonald's.
Yeah, we have a similar drive-through that the board approved on North Dodge Street for Press Coffee. And there's no order board, so it'd be similar to that. And that property also, I think, I don't remember if there was some type of condition that the board put on it, that there must be a sign that says something about order on the app. If that's something that the board wants, it could be added as a condition to have additional signing for clarification.
What happens if someone pulls up, they've ordered, they've done everything they're supposed to do, they order online, they come and pick up their order isn't ready and they're sitting at the window?
I think that's a question for the applicant. Do you want to hear from them now, or are there more questions for staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay,
Everybody else is,
I don't know, I mean,
okay. I just have a quick question about my favorite word, process. One of the conditions we're applying is a fee to be paid at the time of the issuance of the building permit. Fee to be determined by the city engineer. What sort of standards, is it a set square footage, length? How is that fee determined?
I think it's the linear foot of the pavement, the cost of the pavement.
Okay, so it's consistent with any other similar project like that?
Yeah, yeah. And typically it would be probably not for a sidewalk, but for some other type of improvement.
My real question is, this fee is paid up front, but the city has no timetable for putting the sidewalk in. Is there a cutoff point? How long is the city allowed to keep that money?
We keep it forever, and we will spend it when we get to the point of improving that highway.
So, not knowing how much that fee is, but, so there's no time determinant that money, that improvement has to be done.
No,
City takes the money, says sometime in the future, we will make the improvement.
yes.
Okay. How often is this done? Do you, just in general, do you have other properties that have done this?
So we, maybe
Had
it's,
a project that's still waiting to be done after years of paying the fee.
I don't know that I can answer that. We do have fees paid for parks, but per code, that has to be spent in a certain time, and we keep track of that, but that's a code requirement. We also take escrow payments, those are a little different. And that money is paid up front, and then when the developer makes the improvement that is required, they get that money back. sometimes the improvement isn't made and it stays in escrow. So it's kind of similar to that. But yeah, the city has a project kind of in the works that the staff report alluded to, that at some point in the future, we realize that there's, you know, a poorly functioning intersection, and there's things that can be improved in this area, and we want to fix those. So it's not like there's nothing planned. I mean, we do have plans in the works to make these improvements in coordination with the DOT.
So you know what, you don't know what the record is for still holding on to a fee for work to be done that has not been done. Is it possible to ask somebody
I
in the
think
city?
we can ask Public Works, but I don't know that this comes up very often.
Okay. The idea of holding fees indeterminately just seems to be, again, it seems unfair in the long run. Promising work that's partially paid for and is not done in a timely manner. Regardless of that, that's it. That's all I got. So anything else from the board to the staff? If not, we'll have the applicant.
I have a question. We were talking about the bicycle parking. Why was the dumpster located where it is?
I think that's also a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Sign in.
Good evening, John Marner with MMS Consultants, sorry. Representing the developer. We also have a representative here as well. I think I'll have him speak to the specific question about how the Chipotlane works that you mentioned. He probably has a little more familiarity there. I will try to answer some of the other questions that were posed. As far as the bicycle parking and the dumpster location, I just briefly speaking, we would prefer, and Madison, I don't know if you can pull up the site exhibits. I think our recommendation, if it's acceptable and everybody generally agrees it's a good location, would be next to that patio area. There's some green space surrounding it, so there's an opportunity to have the bicycle parking next to that patio. It's near the front door entrance. It fits well. Part of the reason the location was chosen originally was, again, to allow a reasonably quick path from the public sidewalk along Sturgis Corner directly through the site and then to cross over to Park. But again, we'd be more than happy to route it through and across the front side of the building and have it near that patio area. So I think if that's acceptable, we would welcome that recommendation. The dumpster location was chosen primarily. One of the requirements of a site plan submittal is that we need to screen, certainly, and make sure it's not set along the public right of way as best as possible. In this instance, it's cited by 3 public right-of-ways. There are very limited locations. It's near the back side of the building. So that's why that location was chosen. As far as checking my notes here, the comment regarding the third access, we agree. So part of the reason we chose the access to the north as opposed to the one to the south was, and this ties into some of the other concerns about vehicular flow, where these vehicles want to exit the site, is it allows for the most stacking distance from Highway 6. So that's intended to offset some of those concerns about peak hour traffic. I think you can see it's 167 feet. That's approximately 8 cars that can queue up before it impacts the intersection for the restaurant itself. Couple other comments here. There was a question about parking spaces. The building is just over 23, I think right around 2,300 square feet. That would require per code 23 parking spaces. Again, that's something that would be reviewed as part of the site plan application. We have 26 shown on the site to allow for a few extra just to make sure that it's not at the minimum required. And last but not least, there were some questions and concerns about the intersection at the Poncheros location and the timing of the traffic study. MMS Consultants is located very close to this particular location. I actually frequent that location, Poncheros, quite a bit over the years. I'm very familiar anecdotally with some of the traffic concerns there. I just say that the recent city capital improvement to Orchard Street and the site development that is currently under construction for that Ponchero site facilitates more access to Orchard Street as opposed to all of the traffic needing to come out to Riverside Drive. And once it gets to Orchard Street, then it can flow back towards Highway 6 or Highway 6, Highway 1, or it can flow over towards Benton Street and utilize those stoplights. So I don't have anything else to add. If you would like to speak
Certainly.
quickly to a couple other things.
Sign in real quick. My name is Hans Kuhlman with Halifax Development. And Ms. Weigert, I'll address your question about ordering. You order on your app, and then you're notified when your order is ready to be picked up. So you would not get in the drive-through lane until you were notified that your order is ready to be picked up. Okay, do you have any
Yes,
other
I would
questions?
s- That would probably be the best case scenario, but my question, I've seen multiple comments online about people being held up in lanes because they were behind people still waiting for their orders. And that's why I asked it. That's
Okay.
why I raised it.
Respectfully, if you don't mind me asking, was that specific to the Chipotlane site in Coralville or
No.
drive-throughs in general?
Just Chipotlanes.
Okay.
And if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to.
On this same topic, I'll be the first to admit, I don't use apps because I'm just old. But it seems to me as a business proposition, there would be studies showing what difference this makes in a regular drive up the operation, ordering, waiting, picking up.
Correct.
Do you have any studies that?
Yeah, there's a
that
significant
show
study that we
the
provide
advantage?
staff, I believe. Did we provide you all the Chipotlane study when we submit our application? It's an 8-page study that Chipotle did for their Chipotlanes that indicate.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Yeah. So there's a study that there is a much quicker time in line and there's a much less stacking requirement. Because again, you're not in line ordering and then waiting for the order to be prepared. You're ordering ahead of time and then showing up when you're notified that the order is ready.
Yeah, that would seem logical. I just wonder if there'd actually been some documented studies on it.
Yes, and it's part of the application packet.
I would also add to address the concern that certainly there may still be instances. And one of the other questions was people that aren't familiar with the Chipotlane, with that process and what that looks like, that there's not an order board, that it's just simply a mobile order app and a pickup. That's one of the benefits of the bypass lane. So if that happens, they start to enter the drive-through lane, realize that there is in fact no order board. They still have the opportunity to get in the bypass lane, come back around the site, pull into a parking space, order on the mobile app. They're not familiar with it, figure out what they need to do and go from there. The one thing we didn't talk about, I just wanted to mention, I appreciate your comments about the assessed or about the fee upfront versus other options. I think we would request consideration as that those fees would be assessed as opposed to an upfront fee for some of the same concerns and statements you made. It's an indeterminate amount of time. I actually think there would be benefit to the city to consider it as an assessed fee. It provides for a little bit of variance. I mean, if it's 2 years, 5 years from now, certainly we're all familiar with construction costs, the rapid change in what those have been over the past 4 to 5 years. Doing it as an assessment might be a better opportunity to capture the real cost of that project in the future if it actually moves forward.
The city doesn't do assessments. We haven't, the 25 years I've been here, and I'll bet 25 years before that. Some communities do, we don't do them.
Or any public improvements?
No.
would there be an opportunity to defer the fee until such time that the project was contemplated, or there was a request for proposal put out for that project?
We don't have a problem participating. Be more than happy to participate to allow for the pedestrian sidewalk.
We have not done that with other applications. We always like to ensure that there's a trigger that in order to get the building permit in this case, or get a site plan approved, that you need to pay the fee. We, and I have not been here as long as Sue has, but we've never taken it after the fact.
I'm not saying you can't do it after the fact. You can't do it via an assessment.
Right, and I guess what I'm saying is if we just keep the flat fee that's based on the city engineer's cost, they always want it. The trigger being the building permit ensures that we get the fee because they want their building permit. And getting it later involves tracking, and we just don't do that.
So there is only one way to do this, which is to take the fee up front.
The alternative is to have them install the sidewalk, which Public Works does not want them to do, because it's not ready and they want to do it with the project.
I understand the applicants, I mean, I just find that an odd way to understand why you want to get it up front or have some guarantee, but you're taking money that's not being applied for an indeterminate amount of time. And we're not going to settle this on this issue.
Right,
So
sure.
don't expect any
Sure.
change there.
Okay.
But I think it's something that staff or somebody ought to be talking about. I'll bring it up again. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other
Any other
questions for
questions?
the applicant?
Yeah, so is your major emphasis then on the drive-through?
No, it is not a major emphasis. It is, they have, I think, as opposed to like a Starbucks, which I think now has 60-70% of their traffic is through the drive-through. I believe Chipotle is still 20 to 30%, does not reach the capacity that a typical drive-through fast food Starbucks would have. Hence, that's why we just have a lot less stacking and a lot less cars in queue based off that study compared to most fast food restaurants.
So the inside dining is a
Correct.
major,
Correct.
Questions for the applicant? No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the applicant? Anyone opposed? Any other questions? Final chance? Hearing no comments, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll take a motion to be made to continue discussion.
I move that we accept, do we say accept?
You have to make a motion to approve or
I move that we approve EXC 25001. An exception requesting a special exception to allow a drive-through facility associated with an eating establishment in a community commercial zone at 21 Sturgis Drive or Sturgis Corner Drive.
Second.
you have to list the conditions,
Oh, we have to put the conditions in.
following conditions.
Well, but we haven't, no, there are two that were brought up by the staff, but do we have any other conditions that we want to add to that? So is this the time we put conditions
We
in?
need to make the motion based on the recommendation here, and then we could add in discussion afterwards, but we need to get this on the table
Okay.
right now.
Uh, I got it back here. That's right, okay. With, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the developer shall pay the city a fee for the cost of installing a sidewalk along Highway 6 East to be installed by the city at a future date. Fee to be determined by the city engineer and general compliance with the state plan dated 2/5/25.
Second,
I second.
seconded by Tolman. Okay, discussion. Here's where you can make amendments, changes.
John, I just wanted, we don't have to make it conditional upon the bike parking being moved. You can find a solution. Okay.
Also take care of the access that is shown on the site plan, I think you were concerned with.
Yep.
That will alleviate those aprons going in. We'll take care of that.
Okay.
We really need to have all the comments at the microphone if you're going to
Yeah,
make them.
sorry.
That's all right.
Right, and we've closed the public hearing, so.
That,
Yeah.
and we're done, and it's just between us.
Okay. I don't think it's necessary to put a condition for relocating the bike parking. It sounds like the applicant is able to do that easily.
Any other discussion?
I agree on that, and also with the dumpster thing, their goal is to have a successful business. And so I was wondering if the dumpster was something that the city made them put the dumpster in that particular spot rather than they feeling that this would be the best spot for them. So I want to make sure that they are able to design their site for the best traffic and whatever, so that they have a very successful business. I don't want to see the city put in things that make it more difficult for you to succeed.
Any other discussion? If not, we need to have a confirmation of the findings of fact.
Before we do that, I have to admit, I'm struggling with the traffic study in this location. The findings in the traffic study and that are listed in the staff report, it functions poorly. And on paper, 76 vehicles in an hour may not look like much, and it may not have that much impact, but in reality, I've experienced the traffic in this location daily and been caught up waiting in traffic to pull in or out. I've designed my own routes to get around in the area. Sometimes I've had to turn out of Staples, turn right on Benton, go turn around at Heartland and back out so that I can head west. The traffic is a mess in this area. It really does bother me that the pedestrian collision analysis also included deaths in the area. And the drive-through to me is, I think, going to add more than what it looks like on paper.
So what I'm hearing is you disagree with some findings of fact, and so you're going to have to vote no.
No, there are the finding, there are facts in there. There are facts out of the traffic study is what I've pointed out.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood it.
The question becomes, who is responsible for the traffic pattern at that particular intersection and along Riverside Drive? It's the city, and the city needs to step up and deal with some of these problems. I can name numerous situations where this is where you can find this in the city. Is it fair to go against someone who wants to put a business in because the city is not keeping up with their responsibility as far as the traffic goes? They have worked to attempt to have a good flow from their business onto Sturgis Drive. Sturgis Drive, when it goes on to Riverside Drive, I mean, Riverside Drive is hell, and I avoid it if at all possible. I do not go there, and if I have to, I go during the day when it isn't busy. But that is not the is that the problem of the people who have businesses there? Or is that a problem of the city not dealing with a traffic problem?
Well, I think part of the issue is they're requesting a special exception. This isn't normal.
I understand your concern, and the traffic study was alarming, and it seemed like the bulk of the problems, I think, the bulk of the problems are in that left turning to go south on Riverside Drive. But I agree with Nancy, the location of this, right approximate to Sturgis Corner Drive, where you also have the option of going south and then west on east, and then north on Riverside. I don't feel that it's not the applicant's making. The existing problem is not the applicant's making. So I think that it is a problem. It's recognized as a problem, but this isn't causing the problem. And from what I've read and heard, I don't believe it's going to exacerbate the problem. Overall, I think the development is going to improve pedestrian safety, and with the improvements along Highway 60 that are envisioned, it'll be a really good improvement to that little corner.
Oh, I agree that area has suffered for a long time with various attempts at restaurants that haven't been very successful. And so I would like to see something there that will add to the community and add to the area. Definitely.
Okay. What I'm hearing is there's no one who wants to make a change in the findings or the recommendations. There's concerns, but not enough to provoke a change in findings or recommendations.
I would agree with that.
Agree.
Need to have someone say that. No changes then. You're the closest ones.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay, regarding EXC 25-0001, I concur with the findings set forth in the staff report of February 12th, 2025, and conclude that the general and specific standards are satisfied. Unless amended or opposed by another board member, I recommend that the board adapt the findings in the staff report for the approval of this application.
Just double checking on the date of the staff report. Is that right?
It should be the 20th.
Oh, the
Yeah.
20th. Okay, I'm sorry.
Need a second on that, don't we?
Second,
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Swigard,
yes.
Russo, absent, Baker.
Yes. Motion is approved, and any person desiring to appeal this decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after this decision is filed with the city clerk's office. Thank you very much. Next up, consideration of the meeting minutes for January the 8th, 2025. I just want to say up front, I'm going to be abstaining from a vote on this because I was did not participate in that meeting. And there's some questions about minutes themselves. So I'm going to be abstaining, but they're up for discussion.
I move that we accept the minutes as written for the meeting on January 8th, 2025.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone received my email from earlier today. David Moore had requested that some changes be made to these minutes. A copy of his email is in front of you if you need to reference that. We can go through the changes as well. And I just want to note that Parker checked the audio today based on Mr. Moore's requests, and what he's asking for did happen at the meeting, and they're accurate.
I'm sorry, Ed, the more is accurate or the meetings are accurate?
The minutes, I think, as written are accurate.
Okay.
Moore is asking for some additional detail to be provided. Parker double-checked the audio to make sure that if this language was going to be inserted, he just double-checked that it was said, and it was.
So it's up to the board whether they want to
Okay, and-
amend.
well, wait a
It's
minute.
up to you.
If Larry is recusing himself and you were not part of the board at our last meeting, that means it's just Paula and I.
That's incorrect. Julie had been appointed as a member of the board prior to your meeting. She just chose not to participate because it occurred the day before. She
Okay, so
can vote,
Vote on
or
that,
she can choose to
'cause we
abstain.
need a majority.
Well, with the two left, the two of you can vote, but you both would have to agree. But Ms. Tallman certainly can participate if she chooses to, or she can not.
I think, I mean, I was here, I observed, I listened, I read this email. I feel comfortable participating.
So does the motion need to be amended?
Does anybody want to amend the minutes to include Dave's suggestions?
Right, that's correct. That's what the board has to decide. It's your minutes.
Okay, okay, I don't know how to go about this. I have some real concerns about some of the things that happened at our meeting last time, about the dates. And that was brought up over and over again. It says, with respect to the timing and the calendar day and his interpretation of this body's rules for its calendar was that today is the proper date for this hearing based on the timing of the application. Dave Moore's lawyer said deadline for submittal was December 6th, and this submittal occurred 4 days later. There was a lot of question as to when things should have been submitted in order to be considered for the meeting on January 12th, 10th, whenever we had it.
This is just about the minutes themselves. It's not about the process of the meeting.
Okay, so if I'm concerned about the process,
That's
then
it. That's another matter.
that's another matter.
Right.
That's what I want to make sure.
Yeah. This is just approval of the minutes as submitted and whether the board wishes to amend them as requested, or any other amendments the board in reviewing the minutes would like to make.
Reluctant to enter this discussion, but as a process question, is one option to not amend the minutes, but to include the correspondence from Mr. Moore as part of the record?
Yes.
Okay.
Initially, I was thinking that for transparency, and as he said, that he's talking about a principle. I'm not sure what principle, but it was an issue, and it did cause some concern. I don't think it's anything that would have changed the outcome. I don't know that that's, I mean, it's the minutes. But really, if we can approve them with this addendum and it becomes part of the record,
I think that's different. If you approve them with the addendum, that means you're amending the minutes. If you just want them added to the package, so if someone wants to look at, just like the traffic study, et cetera, will be part of the packet of that meeting, well, actually of this meeting, that's fine too. But if you actually want the minutes to be amended, and so the final minutes would be amended and they would include these changes, then you need to make that change. Then you,
okay.
and so staff can do that.
I think the minutes should be amended to include these comments. That's my opinion.
Can I just wanted to know, in Parker's review of the minutes, he found, on page 5, there was something attributed to board member Russo, and it should have been to Cox. So staff would also like to make that correction in the second paragraph.
So 2 out of 3 would amend the minutes to reflect Mr. Moore's concerns. Okay.
Right, then it should be in a motion to approve as amended, both by staff's change from Ernie to Mark, or Mark to Ernie, I can't remember that one, and that as well as Mr. Moore's requested changes.
I move that we approve the minutes with the amendment from the staff and Mr. Moore's amendment also. Is that correct?
Yes,
That
Second.
come back to us at another meeting, or is it, go ahead? Okay.
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Then I would like to discuss that. I had concerns about.
That's not on the agenda, so
Oh,
you cannot.
Okay, so how do I go about dealing with
Well,
that?
if the board would like to speak to it, and it can be on a future agenda, but it can't be tonight.
No, I would like
Well,
to bring
That's
it.
up to you folks.
Okay, I would like that to be on a future agenda, that we speak about the dates.
It's your agenda, not mine.
What you're requesting is that in the next meeting, we have set aside time to specifically discuss the what?
Okay, when there was a lot of questions about when the appropriate date was to, wait a minute, I gotta find my stuff here. I have it here. When the appropriate date was to file. And I'm sorry, I'm here, okay. When the application deadline was in relation to the meeting date. There was a lot of discussion between both parties and a lot of disagreement as to what the application deadline was. And so I would like to discuss that next time. And see if we could come up, the first year that I was on the board, I got this list with an application deadline each month, the date of the application deadline and the meeting date. So that it was written out so that everybody knew what it was. And we have sort of lost that. So I would sort of like to discuss this so that it's clear to anybody, it's clear to the board members when they have to have it in. And if they don't have it in before that, it's 2 p.m. on that date, then it cannot be on the meeting date for the month. There has to be a correlation between the application date and the meeting date.
Want the board to discuss with city staff at the next meeting, the process of scheduling agenda items. Is that An understanding? Okay.
Because there was a lot of confusion at this last meeting, and I really feel that it would behoove everybody to know exactly what those dates were and to make them public.
Assume it looks like there are at least 3 members. Okay. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, looking for the language.
Have any information?
Call for
us?
adjournment.
I don't have any information.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, I was just asked if we had any additional information to share with the board.
If not,
Motion to motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much.